WCW Monday Nitro number 166. November 16th.
Ironically, they're plugging World War III this coming weekend.
November 16th, 1998.
How fitting.
The Nitros of this era, they're also completely indistinguishable. It took me like 5 minutes to figure out which show I had not seen and which ones I had. I kept reading the descriptions. I thought, that sounds familiar. This sounds familiar. That also sounds familiar. All of these sound familiar. Then I started watching. I was like, no, I watched that one. Haven't seen this one yet. Okay, here we go. This is the right one. Hulk Hogan's presidential motorcade arrived.
The show can die. I mean, it does. But boy, it's fucking motorcade. Like, come on. Hulk Hogan's running for president. Who was watching this shit?
I don't know.
Besides people, I mean, if you were paid to watch this, then that's one thing. But I mean, if you were watching this for free, I feel like you when you yell at all the Raw viewers. Like, what the fuck were you thinking watching this shit? He's coming out as the president. He ain't the president.
I'm aware.
He was the top heel. Now he's coming out trying to be a babyface. It's so stupid.
Kidman versus Juventud Guerrero.
At least something good on this show.
A very good opening match, like a pay-per-view quality match here in the opener. The announcers spent the entire time plugging in the Nitro debut of one Bobby Duncombe Jr. Oh, he's a great athlete. Second-generation star. Over and over and over again. For several minutes, ignoring this championship match here to plug Bobby Duncombe Jr.
Not only did they ignore this match, but the story of the show was they ignored this match. Not just this match. Like 5 matches here on this show. What's going on over there? You got the flu?
I may have.
Jesus.
Coffee, but since I got here.
They, over and over again. Ignored matches.
Yes.
They even explained to us, sorry, we haven't been paying attention.
That happened once. At least once.
More than once.
Yeah. I just love the idea that Bobby Duncombe Jr. is the guy who's going to turn this war around. The other channel has The Rock. He's a second-generation guy. We'll get Bobby Duncombe Jr. to be our The Rock.
Well, hey. He wasn't.
No. Had a very fun opening match. A brief Hoovy sucks chant, but he was not a heel, so they gave up. Went back and forth, teased finishers, and then Hoovy...
They had kickouts.
There were kickouts of finishers here.
There were near falls off finishes.
Mania near falls, in fact, yes.
That's right.
The Hoovy taking the German, but landing on his feet, hitting the Michinoku driver for a near fall was great. And Kimmon went up for the shooting star press, but Hoovy crotched him and threw him down, hit the 450 splash to win the match in the Cruiserweight title. A very good opener.
Finish was awesome. Probably could have shaved off a few minutes in the middle. It was another one of those Nitro matches that they just have go on forever. And listen, I don't want to say it wasn't great. It was great. It was still too long. That is possible. And Kidman gave him the belt afterwards.
That's right.
Everybody cheered. They were totally into the match. I wasn't mad yet. I mean, I was mad because Hogan had shown up as the president, or the limo was there with the Secret Service. But I mean, other than that, so far so good. I hadn't decided yet that Nitro was going to go first. That was still to come.
Wrath versus Raven.
Oh, by the way, they played the show open 20 minutes into the show.
Yes.
Because legally, you must play the show open.
Seriously?
Yeah. In television, you must play that open.
I was not aware.
Yeah. But I guess you can play like whenever the fuck you want. Because they played it 20 minutes into the show.
Played at the end then. I had no idea about that. That's weird.
It may be changed now, but in the 90s, you had to play your open.
So this was going to be a big step up in competition for Wrath. But Raven did a promo about his mother had been super controlling, just like Judy Bagwell. Now he was an adult, nobody told him what to do, and he wasn't doing this match. So Kanyon takes the mic and asks, "What's wrong with you? I'm begging you to wrestle. And if you won't, quote, then I'm going to get my shtick in." So Raven leaves. Kanyon does his promo.
He got his shtick in.
He did.
Yeah, just like he'd promised.
Yeah. He mentioned he was scheduled to wrestle Glacier, and then Wrath jumped him from behind. Not technically a match. Wrath just hit him with a meltdown. Then Glacier came out after the break. Glacier came out. Wrath gave him the meltdown too. They went to break. Then during the break, Wrath beat them both up for several minutes. And then it came back. They still did the stupid match.
Oh my God. This was the beginning of me turning on this. It's supposed to be Kanyon versus Glacier. Wrath beats up both guys. Great. Let's move on with our lives. Yeah. Instead, both guys are down in the ring. They show all the replays. They show Wrath killing both dudes. They show them both lying there dead. The ref just starts counting. 1, 2, 3. I'm like, why bother? Just like, get out of here. Fucking gets to 9, and Kanyon crawls over and covers the guy. I was mildly annoyed, because I was like, does it matter? Does Kanyon have to pin Glacier? Glacier fucking kicks out.
He sure did.
Oh my God, in heaven above, I was filled with fury. Then they just wrestled forever. It fucking sucked. It would be one thing if it was good. It wasn't.
It was not.
They just kept going. The crowd is dead. They don't want to see this. I don't want to see this. Nobody wants to see this. Then Canyon just hits a flatliner and wins.
As you've noted, Canyon was a really, really nice guy. Really talented and creative guy. He had no clue how to put together a wrestling match. In the middle of this thing, he takes Glacier outside and does a fame asser on the stairs. And he throws him in, and it's not even a close near fall. It's your average 2 count. Then they just keep doing stuff. This did, in fact, suck. Nitro party clips. Not sure who these dudes were there. But not only did they have girls at this party, but they talked the girls into doing pudding wrestling.
I was shocked.
Should have been another Raw party. They made Raw in a couple of years. A recap of Hulk Hogan running for president. Sonny Ono versus El Gringo.
Yeah. You know what's funny is like the fake blue blazer comes out every week. I have no idea who it is. This fucking guy came out, I knew immediately it was Kaz Hayashi.
Yes.
It's not even like I see Kaz Hayashi all that much. He's barely ever on this show. And it wasn't like the mask exposed his face.
No.
But it exposed enough that I knew immediately it was Kaz Hayashi. Now, the bad news is they made Kaz Hayashi into the biggest geek I've ever seen in my life.
They're way up there.
Okay, if we ignore that, I thought this was great. Sonny Ono gets in the ring. By the way, Mike Tenay has no clue it's Kaz Hayashi. Gringo catches Sonny Ono's foot and shoves him, and Sonny Ono just took the greatest martial arts bump. He took a break fall. It's like a great bump. Then he explains, that's not what I paid for. Gringo unmasks. It's Kaz Hayashi. Apparently I was the only person on the planet that recognized Kaz Hayashi. He took the mask off. Nobody knew who he was.
Yeah.
Dead silence in the building.
He was not a big star.
No. Shat runs in. He kills Hayashi with a kick. Sonny Ono gets in the ring, covers him, gets the win, and then Sonny Ono demands the Shat hold him back as he hides behind him. Sonny Ono was so awesome in this segment. If you care about Sonny Ono, this was awesome.
You're the guy.
If you care about Kaz Hayashi, this was Geek of the Week material back here in 1998. Bailey was laughing at El Gringo.
Well, speaking of laughing, someone pulled a great rib on Dean Malenko. Dean, they said, you're going to team with Steve McMichael, and your opponents are going to be Horace and Stevie Ray.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this again. Dean Malenko and Steve McMichael versus Horace and Stevie Ray. So Dean started, and he did with it what he could, and for the minute or two he was in there, it was an average Nitro match. And then Mongo tagged in. The horror that followed of Mongo trying to work with Horace and Stevie Ray.
Dude, I was getting ready to flip my lid when I saw him in there with Stevie. But then he got in there with Horace, and he was just as horrible. And Horace could work with Dean.
Yes.
So Horace wasn't, like, great, but he wasn't that bad.
He was the second best guy in this match.
Nobody can do anything with Mongo.
No.
He's hopeless.
And he drags down those around him. The three-way brawl in the corner when Mongo was trying to fight his way out and they were trying to hold him down, like the very worst pro wrestling can be. And then Dean was like, tag me back in, you assholes. Tagged him back, and he did what he could. Which was a fine plan in the short term, but then it led to Mongo making a hot tag. And my jaw was just open watching these oafs lumber around. How could all three of you be this bad?
It's not all three. It's Mongo. If Mongo would have made a comeback on Dean, it would have been horrible. He's the worst. He's got to be the worst full-time wrestler who got a push I've ever seen.
He's way up there. So Arn punches out Vincent on the floor, and Stevie Ray lays out Mongo with the slapjack, as in the weapon, not the wrestling move. But Arn pulls out a tire iron and cleans house.
For the DQ, we cannot have a finish in this match.
None of these men can be pinned.
No.
As I wrote here, an amazing, breathtaking pile of shit.
You know what's even funnier about it? It's as bad as it was also stupid. Because Doug Dillinger comes out and he wants the tire iron. What about the fucking slapjack?
I don't know.
That's an illegal weapon. But he didn't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
That tire iron, that's got to go. In fact, they later arrest Arn Anderson because he used a tire iron.
We were told Arn Anderson had been arrested, yes. Taken to prison.
But man, that slapjack, that's okay.
Let it fly.
Yeah.
In the very next segment, Mean Gene brings Ric Flair out for a promo. Here, Flair said, yes, Arn Anderson is being taken to jail by Eric No Guts, No Gonads Bischoff. Talked about wanting to chop Bischoff so hard Bischoff would grow new nipples. Not sure how that works, but I laughed. And said, yes, I have blown a lot of money because I lived a great life, but I also saved some. And somehow this led to him bringing out Barry Windham.
Well, the storyline is that Eric Bischoff, who like 6 months ago lost all control of WCW and was not allowed to hire or fire anybody in storyline, now he's just in charge again. And so he claimed, you can't bring back Barry. I didn't hire him. I fired him a few years ago. So Rick claimed, I'm using my money
I see.
to pay Barry Windham.
I see.
Why? Well, watch his 30 for 30.
Yes. So, Flair says Windham would tear up Bischoff's girlfriend and started to get very specific about what Barry was going to do to Elizabeth, mentioning her by name.
Barry's caught totally off guard. He literally goes,
prepared.
whoa.
Hang on there. And the only way I can put this is they scurried to commercial. They cannot get to this commercial break fast enough.
He told Liz, get ready, because BW's in town.
Thought he was going to take her downtown.
One way or the other. He's going to do both.
I guess so.
He's in town, he's going to take her downtown, and he's going to tear her up.
Yeah.
Uncomfortable visual.
It was. Especially for Barry. Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio Jr.
Are these guys like, what's going on? This is 2 weeks in a row they're unable to have a good match.
This is better than last week, but not much.
Man, they just were fucking up spots left and right.
Like 20 seconds in, they're doing like arm ringers, and Ray runs up the ropes and does like a moonsault flip into a DDT. It was just like AJ's moonsault into the reverse DDT, but Ray did it in one motion. It looked 1,000 times cooler. And it wasn't even a near fall. He just did this awesome move.
The bigger issue is he ran up top and he jumped off and did a beginning of a Phoenix splash.
He did the Jeff Hardy dive.
Eddie's nowhere to be found.
No, Eddie's miles away.
And Ray falls down on the ground, and the ground moves, and Eddie just takes the bump anyway. This is Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio.
Yeah.
Fucking up moves.
Yeah.
Having a bad match. Ray's 10 pounds heavier than last week. His voice is down a full octave. I don't know what's going on.
So the story here, as explained in the promo, was Eddie says, we've wrestled twice. We had one draw, and you beat me with interference. But I still respect you, Ray. So here's the deal. If I beat you tonight, you will join the LWO. If you beat me, I'll get off your back. And Ray confirmed these terms. If I beat you, he'll leave me alone. And Eddie says, quote, we'll part as friends. I laughed and I laughed and I laughed. I don't know why. We'll part as friends. Made me laugh. So they had a sloppy match. Eddie's mysterious unnamed bodyguard tripped Ray for the heat. Let's see. Eddie powerbombs Ray. Hoovy runs out to hit Eddie. Eddie dodges. Hoovy hits Ray.
What an idiot.
Eddie hits a frog splash.
What were you even doing out here, you numbskull?
I don't know. So Ray, against his will, is in the LWO now.
So if you are a young listener and you've only seen videos and you don't believe it's possible for Ray and Eddie to half-ass a match, watch this week, watch last week. There's your evidence.
Judy Bagwell did a pre-tape promo from the hospital.
Dude, all of a sudden the announcers just say, Judy Bagwell's in the hospital. What? They cut to her. She explains that Scott beat her up.
Basically,
what?
Scott put me here in the hospital, she says, and Buff, you just stood and watched.
I need to undergo surgery, she says. When's it gonna end? I'm a mom on a mission. I want to get rid of Buff and bring Marcus back the way he used to be. What in the fuck is going on? Scott Steiner beat up Judy Bagwell?
Yes. That is what we were led to believe.
Now, what I was led to believe was Judy and Scott and Buff are in cahoots, and they're all going to screw Rick.
We'd like to think so.
I mean, right?
That's a better story than Scott beat up a middle-aged woman. Believable though that may be. So the announcers had no idea what she was talking about, but they took her at her word. Buff Bagwell actually let Scott Steiner beat up his own mother. Which, by the way, Steiner must have had a bad day because, yes, she was in the hospital, but she looks fine.
We don't know what he did. Maybe tore her foot off.
I guess that's true.
We didn't see anything from the waist down.
That's true.
She was in a bed.
Her legs may be gone. I hadn't thought of that. Scott Putski, because the show must have 87 guys named Scott, versus Chavo Guerrero Jr.
I had my finger on the button because I have vowed I will never watch any of these stupid Chavo matches with that fucking horse. And thank God I didn't, because this was an angle.
They cut backstage. A Cadillac zooms in. They're saying, is this part of the motorcade? What is this? And out jumps Bam Bigelow.
I could not believe my eyes.
Can you forget this happened?
I was like, what the fuck is Bam Bigelow doing here?
Bam Bigelow has been in ECW for years. He was their champion. I think he lost it maybe even the night before, because he lost the title to Shane Douglas in this month of November 1998. But he pulls up, and he jumps out, and he starts throwing security dudes around and tossing furniture, demanding to know where Goldberg is.
Couldn't have been the previous... Well, I guess if it wasn't on pay-per-view. Because WWE had a pay-per-view the night before.
It was on pay-per-view. It was the November to Remember that year, whenever that was. So maybe it's the week before. I don't know. I'd probably not still champion at this point, I assume. Maybe I'm wrong. Regardless, he can't find Goldberg backstage, so he goes down to the ring to murder anyone he sees. Poor Putski and Chavo get powerbombed and press-slammed and demolished. And Bam Bam demands Goldberg. Instead, out come Bischoff and Dillon together.
Well, first off, we have Tony saying that Bam Bigelow is one of the most dangerous men in the history of professional wrestling.
That's what he said.
One of the most dangerous men in the history of pro wrestling, Bam Bigelow?
Well, one of, if you consider, he's...
one of thousands.
Yeah, one of the top 95%.
And then, Tenay, as Bigelow is invading the building and going after the talent, says, "We've never seen anything like this before." I was like, how about the NWO? Isn't it the exact same thing, just better?
I stand corrected. Bam Bam dropped the title in October.
There you go.
No, it is right here. I'm sorry. No, Shane Douglas beat Bam Bam Bigelow November to Remember, November 30th, 1997. So Bam Bam was still ECW champion when this angle happened.
Oh, look at that.
That's amazing. He won in October, lost in November. There we go. And I have totally lost my notes. Where are you?
So Bischoff and JJ storm down to the ring. JJ
Yes.
says Bigelow's not employed. He wants security to get him out of there. Out comes Goldberg.
Goldberg's ready to fight. He's got his own security with him. And they get in the ring for a mighty pull-apart. Fans are chanting Goldberg's name. It's all chaotic. And the last thing we see before they go to break is Bischoff demanding Dillon talk to him in the back immediately. And go to the break. When they come back, the violence has been settled down. And Dillon and Bischoff are chatting. And Bischoff gives Dillon a browbeating, and he fires him.
Yeah.
And Dillon says, "You can't fire me, I quit."
They have no idea what they're doing. They have absolutely no idea what they're doing.
If they have been feuding for 2 years, 3 years by now, actually, why didn't one of them fire the other by now?
I have no idea.
All of a sudden, you can just fire each other?
I just watched this, and Bischoff's firing Dillon because Bam Bigelow invaded. I'm like, did I skip a year? What in the world is happening right now? And then, allow me, Saturn versus Conan. This was the worst thing I have seen in I don't even know how long. They start wrestling. Out comes the LWO. Of course, we got to cut backstage. It's Bischoff interviewing Gene, or by vice versa. Buries JJ, says JJ's out of here. Says he's going to talk to Goldberg. Bam Bam doesn't work here. Says there's 60 men this Sunday in Detroit. Bam Bam will not be one of them. Goldberg is a champion. It's not on him to make himself available to any geek who comes in off the street. Goldberg storms out, grabs Bischoff by the neck, demands the match with Bigelow, And so the match is apparently on for tonight. So we go back to this horrible match. It's going on forever. It's horrible. It's Saturn versus Conan. Styles clash. Nothing looks good. Finally, the LWO just runs in and attacks Saturn for the disqualification. I'm infuriated. Crowd's dead. Conan then goes to help Saturn to his feet, but Saturn punches Conan. Saturn then proceeds to single-handedly beat up the entire LWO all by himself. He just wrestled a whole match. He's at the man disadvantage. This is the group that Eddie Guerrero is in the charge of, and now has just added Rey Mysterio. Saturn beat up every single one of them. They're hitting him. He's not selling a damn thing. He's beating him up. Goes up the ramp. Conan says, "Hey, this isn't over, punk. Get back here, Busta." Saturn, this Busta, goes back down to the ring and fucking beats the shit out of Conan again. And then it's over. Did I miss anything here?
No, you got it all.
This was the stupidest segment since the lawyers last week.
Just like I saw it. You said I saw it the same way. I got nothing to say about the match. I do want to talk about Goldberg. The interview that happened during the match. When Goldberg comes out, I actually didn't realize exactly what happened here until I watched the replay again later. Goldberg comes out, he says he wants Bigelow, and he gives Bischoff like one chance to say yes. And Bischoff does not say yes right away. So Goldberg grabs him by the face and pushes him back into the wall. He makes his demand again. Eric is still protesting. Goldberg makes his demand a third time, and this time he moves Eric's head up and down to nod yes. And then Goldberg says, "Thank you." And he storms back into his room. I just loved the thank you. He's such a nice boy.
So we have that. We have the JJ segment. We have the Conan versus Saturn debacle. They go back to the announcers. Tony has his head hung low. And he says, JJ's been fired. He's just bringing up every bad thing that's happened on the show. His head is hung. And then he looks up and he says, "Well, let's lift our spirits up here." And he pounds the desk and says, "Bring on the girls." And out came the Nitro girls.
Okay.
I howled at this. I absolutely died laughing and went back. Everyone listen to me. You must watch this. Tony punching the desk and then screaming, "Bring on the girls." After lamenting all of the shit that we've just seen with his head hung low, was incredible. This show is the worst show ever.
Well, it's going to get worse.
Everyone quit bitching about Raw. You can bitch about Raw. You can bitch about SmackDown. Stop comparing it to Nitro, okay? Please.
And now it gets worse.
Oh, my God.
Buff Bagwell.
Before that, the video package for Hall and Nash.
I'll be honest, I did not pay attention.
I'll tell you what, it's important to pay attention.
Okay.
The whole thing is about their feud. Okay?
They hate each other.
Just fucking remember that.
Scott Hall and Kevin Nash hate each other.
And let's think about this. They're going to be wrestling at World War III.
In 6 days.
Right now, we know 2 matches. Hall versus Nash.
Yes.
And the Battle Royal.
Right.
That's all we fucking know.
Correct.
Remember that.
Buff Bagwell and Scott Steiner come out with their own referee.
Slick Johnson.
Slick Johnson.
His debut.
They claimed this ref was superior to WCW officials. Had him count 3 to prove it. This part was actually funny, if I'm being honest. So Scott cuts a promo about fucking a bunch of women. Then he says, "It's true. Buff Bagwell gave me permission to punch out his mother." And then he and Buff hugged. And then out came a man in drag, who they claimed was Mrs. Steiner.
At this point, Bobby Heenan was done with the show.
Here's the way.
He did not give a shit from this point forward.
The way the dynamic is supposed to work is that Heenan is the heel announcer who plays along with all the silly games the heels are playing. He refused to. He wouldn't say his line, and so Tony says, "That's Scott Steiner's mom." And Heenan says, "No, it isn't." So it was all. This was beneath the dignity of Bobby the Brain Heenan. He would not lower himself to call this action.
Oh, no. He lowered himself. This dude comes out in drag. Rick comes down, begins to rip the clothes.
Well, first Scott says, Buff, you let me beat up your mom. Now you can beat up mine. And Buff beat up this guy and pinned him.
Yes.
Then Rick comes down.
Rick comes out. He's tearing off Mrs. Steiner's clothes. It's a dude in drag. Bobby Heenan, deadpan, just goes, not bad. He asks for $1. I guess he's going to go stuff it in this dude's bra. Steiner, Rick's going nuts on him, screaming, this is not my mother.
This ain't my mother.
Heenan says, it's your dad. I don't know what was happening here. Fucking NWO comes out. They attack Rick. It's just shit.
Yeah.
I gave up.
That's all.
I felt like Heenan. It's like, give me something to drink. Let's start drinking for the Nitros. I can't do this sober anymore.
Chris Jericho versus the debuting Bobby Duncombe Jr. Between Bobby Duncombe and Barry Windham, I believe WCW at this point had more cowboys than tag teams.
Duncombe was dead a year later from a drug overdose.
Yeah. They did a match. It was a Nitro match. Jericho idiot-proofed it. Tried to make Duncombe look good. And
He didn't look bad.
And then he grabbed his TV title and he walked out for the countout. Well, that's fucking lame.
It was lame, but you know what? I wasn't expecting nothing. And when it was over, I thought, man, Duncombe didn't look bad.
You got, in fact, nothing.
Yeah.
You could have gotten less than nothing. On that note, Hulk Hogan came out.
Here we go, everybody. Doing his presidential gimmick.
He says, I have a new intern. I guess this was supposed to be a Monica Lewinsky look-alike.
Yes.
I will be honest, I have no idea what Monica Lewinsky looks like anymore.
Well, I mean, at the time.
Or what she looked like then.
I mean, it was...
I'm sure if this was 1998...
It was certainly not a dead ringer.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was Monica Lewinsky.
Okay. So she came out. She presented Hogan with a cigar. They had a passionate embrace. The announcers were absolutely, utterly terrified to say anything. And pretty much admitted as such. Tony just says, I'm not saying anything. I think Bobby said, I could, but I won't. Something along those lines. So then Bischoff comes out, and suddenly...
I did like when Bischoff came out, because he's had a bad night. And he clearly does not want anything to do with this bullshit in storyline. But it's Hulk Hogan. And so he comes out there looking like his dog died. But every time Hogan throws to him, he has to act all happy for the Hulkster. I did love that.
That's all well and good. Hogan suddenly vows to be NWO champion again someday. So he's going to be president and world champion.
Well, the election's not till 2000.
I see.
He's got time.
That's valid. Suddenly Scott Hall's in the ring. And suddenly Scott Hall, I guess, is questioning Bischoff's loyalty to the NWO.
Well, he's asking him where his head is at.
What does that mean?
I don't know. He did look sad.
I had absolutely no idea what was happening. This started off as a wacky political joke, and now it seems like it's one giant inside joke that I don't understand one bit. Eric says, we'll talk later, go to the back, and then Scott Hall punches him out, and Hogan attacks Hall. What the hell is going on?
Hey, it gets better. Hogan attacks Hall, and stop, everybody. Who do you think makes the save for Scott Hall?
Old buddy Kev.
I gave it away, as did you, but the answer is Kevin Nash. Let me repeat this. There are 2 fucking matches announced for the show on Sunday. A 60-man battle royal and one more. Hall versus Nash. Nash comes down and saves Hall. What in the fuck?
Well,
do you know it only gets worse?
Nash saves Hall. They have a stare down. Nash says, I'll see you in Detroit. And he leaves.
This is the worst show there's ever been. This is the new worst show they've ever done, by the way. Remember that one like a couple months ago that I said was the new worst one? You didn't think was that bad?
Yeah.
This, can we agree? The new worst one ever?
It was a goddamn horrible show.
And then we had a great match.
We had a great wrestling match. Bret Hart versus Chris Benoit. I wrote at one point here, why can't Why are there no longer any wrestlers this good? And then I realized there are, in fact, lots and lots and lots of wrestlers this good. They just don't ever get to go out and have good matches. They have to fight through shitty commentary and shitty camera work and shitty booking and shitty angles. They just went out there and wrestled. And it was fucking awesome.
There aren't a lot of people this good, Vinny.
Well, there's a lot of people good.
Yeah. These guys were great.
These guys were fucking good. But they just went there and wrestled. I didn't have to deal with a shaky camera. I didn't have to deal with 200 people talking over each other. I didn't have to deal with 8,000 catchphrases. They just put it on the hard cam, lifted a nice wide shot, steady. I didn't have to struggle to focus on what was going on. Watch two dudes beat the hell out of each other.
Let us separate Benoit from the Killer for a second so I can make this comment. Do you know what I loved about him as a professional wrestler?
Yes. Well, lots, but...
Bret Hart was having a pretty shitty time, and he clearly didn't care, and he was doing a lot of half-assing. Benoit just pulled a great... And I'm not saying that, like, Bret couldn't have a great match, but, like, the moment this bell sounded, Chris Benoit went to work on this guy, and Bret just had to turn it on.
Yeah,
because otherwise he was going to drown.
Yes.
And they had a great match. And even the finish where Bret, basically Bret gets a chair, Benoit gets a chair from him, he's going to hit him, Mickey J takes a chair, Bret low blows Benoit, and then destroys Benoit's arm with the chair for the DQ. That has been playing into Bret's character of late.
Yes.
So, in a vacuum, it was a great finish and a great angle.
In context, it was a great finish.
Now, comparing everything else on the show where there was just one shit finish after another, it made me mad.
Sure.
But, like, if this hadn't been on such a horrible show, this would have been totally fine.
So, Malenko runs out to make the save. He chases Bret away, but then he turns his back, and Bret returns and beats his ass, too. These guys are great wrestlers, but they are shitty horsemen. These horsemen suck.
Yeah. And by the way, Bret is such a great heel that the first few minutes of this match, after 3 hours of shit, like, the crowd was kind of into it, but they weren't that into it. Like, they would, like, scream when Benoit chopped him and that sort of thing, but they didn't care about anything on the show. Bret was so good that by the end of this, they were on fire. And then DDP comes out and clears the ring and challenges Bret to a match on Sunday. Finally, we have 3 matches. Place went nuts for DDP. This was the best thing on the show.
Oh, yeah.
By, like...
Tell me more.
I'd say it was the best thing on the show in months.
It was awfully great.
Perhaps since Goldberg won the title.
Yeah. So, DDP runs out to chase Bret away, and then DDP cuts a promo. He says, Bret, the hit scum Hart, is just like Hollywood scum Hogan and Randy Macho Scum Savage. He actually said this. He's got a theme. He's sticking with it. He dared Bret to come get his U.S. title belt, which is still in the ring, and Bret refused. And so he challenged Bret to a match at World War III. So I guess now we have 3 matches.
Yeah, that's what you said.
Yeah. And then Goldberg was going to wrestle Bam Bam Bigelow in the main event. But as Goldberg was standing in his pyro, Bigelow jumped him. Because Bigelow's whole gimmick is on fire. He's not afraid of pyro. And they brawled over by the side of the stage. Goldberg was still wearing his title belt as they were fighting. And security swarmed to separate them. And at least the show ended on a high note. The last 20 minutes of the show were good.
And now Raw.
Well, very quickly.
They were good, but 90 seconds for the main event.
Yeah.
That sucked.
So the finishers on this show were clean pin for a title change. Sort of clean pin after both men were killed by an angry giant. Pin after Cat kicked a Japanese guy pretending to be a Mexican, pretending to be an Anglo in the face. A DQ when Arn used an iron. Pin after a third party tried to interfere but hit the wrong guy. Double DQ due to attack by a guy with head tattoos. DQ due to attack by a Mexican gang. Count out because the guy just didn't want to wrestle anymore. And DQ due to intentional chair attack.